Hello and welcome back to another installment of The Hiring Lens with myself, Thomas Finn, and my good friends, Jeremy and Christine. Today we've got a fantastic guest who's a very good friend of mine who we will be introducing shortly. But just before we get into the episode, I would love to hear anybody that is tuning in right now. Tell us where you're tuning in from. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know what you want to talk about today because we make sure that this is an interactive session. So if you've got questions, bring them to the table. If you've got comments, bring them to the table. We want to hear them. We want to know your thoughts. So please do get involved at every point and let us know where you are. So guys, do you want to do your intros? Let's start with Christine.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Christine Trippi here of the Wise Pineapple and Crown Society, and doors open today. And I'll leave it at that. I'm so excited for this conversation. I can't wait to get to it.
I'm Jeremy Nichols with Gecko Hospitality in the state of Florida, hospitality headhunter. And I as well am very excited about this conversation. And we've been chatting about this for a while. So without further ado, Thomas, you want to intro or our guest?
Yeah, our guest, definitely.
Our guest.
It is my good friend, Chris Allen, who is one of the leading professionals in the D&I space here in the UK. He is somebody that I go to every time I have a question, and I try my best to be an ally in this space. But, you know, like all of us, I am nervous at times. I don't know what to say sometimes. But he knows how willing I am to understand and to ask that question. And that's why I thought he'd be a fantastic guest for this session, guys. So Chris, in you come, sir.
Hello. I think that may be one of the best introductions I've ever had.
Oh, good. Well, you definitely deserve it. Well, one thing I wanted to start off with, because I know, well, we all know how many questions that we've got in our bank right now. But I know we're going to have some questions and some comments from the audience. But what I'd love to start with is just a bit about you, what your sort of background is, what you brought you into this sort of market, if you like, or space of D&I, and sort of where we see ourselves in it at the moment.
So I run a company called Your D&I, so we're a diversity and inclusion consultancy. We were formed at the start of the pandemic, so September 2020. I thought it was a really good idea to start a business whilst the whole world was shut. So, but I've been working in the D&I space beforehand for about 4.5 years. I had worked in higher education, so worked for a university, specifically supporting businesses on how they can attract and retain diverse students in particular. When you work for a university, there's a lot of red tape, shall we say, and sometimes we whisper things when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So they would never say, oh, that person's black. They would go, that person's black. And they would whisper it. So there was a lot of kind of red tape and a lot of ingrained institutionalism that had kind of gone into working at university. So I tried and got so far. I think there's a Linkin Park song in there somewhere. But in the end, it did matter. So yeah, I joined in 2020 for a very short stint, but obviously Corona reared its ugly head. And end of March 2020, I actually lost my mum through a huge battle that she'd been going through for quite some time. And it was one of those moments I was like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Am I doing enough? And the answer was no. And I'd always had a plan to start my own consultancy, but it was a 5-year plan. I never kind of envisaged that actually we were going to do it in the space of 6 months. So got to work on creating some workshops. During that time, I met the lovely Tom through another friend and colleague. And September 2020, we pulled the trigger and we launched the business, and we've gone from strength to strength. We had our first client within the first 2 months of launching, and then we worked with some of the biggest companies in the country. So yeah, we're kind of doing amazing things. A couple of pinch me moments this year, definitely. But yeah, we try and do D&I differently. That's kind of our biggest USP, I suppose. We don't talk corporate BS. We are very vibrant in the way we come across. I like people to bring their barriers down a little bit, and actually sometimes it's okay to laugh. D&I is such a heavy topic, but sometimes it's okay to kind of have a bit of a giggle at the start, to kind of get loose and kind of get rid of all that kind of build up that's going on in your head. And that's kind of what makes up our workshops. We like to play with words, we like to play with language. So one of our workshops is called the A to T of LGBT+. And the reason why we called it that is because the LGBT+ community have monopolized most of the alphabet at this point. So we really had some fun with actually what we were doing there. And we really kind of, as much as we're fun in what we try and do, obviously, like I said, D&I is a really heavy topic. We don't pull any punches, and we'll call you out for your bad behavior, and we'll call you out for things that have been said, but in a constructive way, and not to point the finger necessarily, but to actually help educate people. And we're probably controversially not a big fan of cancel culture, because I believe that everybody has made a mistake at some point in their life, and we want to help people understand why that's a mistake, why they've said what they've said potentially is incorrect, and actually how to learn from that, adapt, and move on and become a better person and an ally. That's what it's all about for us.
I had a question. Yeah, so I was reading a bio that Thomas sent to me about you, and he did mention in your bio, you mentioned in your bio that you were terminated for being gay 12 years ago. Is that correct?
So 13 years ago now, yeah. So I worked in retail. So I worked in retail from the age of 16 up until I was 32, so 15, 16 years. And during my time, I worked for a very well-known menswear retailer in the UK. They no longer exist. I don't know if it's karma or not. But I had worked there for some time, and I was explaining to, so I was a store manager. I was headhunted for the role of the store. And it was a flagship store. And I was having a conversation with my assistant manager, and she said, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "I'm going away with my partner." And she said, "Oh, what does she do?" And I was like, "Oh, actually, it's a he." And she was like, "Cool, great. Like, what does he do?" And I thought no more of it. Went away for the weekend, and what had happened was my regionals, my boss, had called up to the store whilst I was off and asked where it was. And my assistant manager had said, "Oh, Chris is away with his boyfriend this weekend." So when I came back from the weekend off, my regional manager was in store, and he was like, "Can we have a conversation?" And I just thought he wanted to talk about the performance of the store. We were doing quite well. We were ranking quite highly for quite a new store. And he sat me down and he said, "It's been brought to my attention that the lifestyle you lead outside of the business is not the type of lifestyle that we want to promote as a business. And therefore, we're going to terminate your contract." And I was much like what all your expressions are right now. Yeah. That was the look on my face.
That's okay. So that's very obvious. Sometimes you hear stories about I was terminated because of, right? And it's like more of an assumption, but I mean, this was like very obvious.
100%.
Is that allowed? Is that legal?
So back then in the UK, the Equalities Act came in 2010, and it was 2009 at the time. So legally, I wasn't really covered under a protected characteristic. So legally, I didn't have much to stand on. I did try and fight it, and I got like a month of shush money from the HR department because they didn't know the reason why I'd been sacked. And it was his word against mine. But I was escorted out the back of the premises, couldn't say goodbye to my staff, and kind of treated like a bit of a criminal, really, and just left to it. And that had a huge impact on my life. Every job I went into after there, every retail job I went into after there, I just didn't feel comfortable in coming out. And actually, you spend so much of your life at work that you should feel comfortable to talk about what goes on outside of work and talk about your partners, your relationships, and things like that, to an extent. And it wasn't until I worked in higher education that I felt a bit more comfortable in actually opening up and talking about my sexuality. But that still came with a couple of issues with being the only gay guy in the team, and sometimes that was highlighted and things like that. So it was constant.
But when you say now, and like reflecting on that moment, as horrible as it is, and Adele also said how horrible that is. Thank you, Adele, for watching. But I mean, we've had things in our past that happened at the time that are just so awful. But do you feel like that kind of catapulted you and gave you the opportunity to have this passion for D&I?
I think it took me a while to get to grips with it. It took me years to get to grips with it. I think it wasn't until I kind of owned my sexuality. I've never been one of these people that my sexuality is my everything. It's my whole being. It's a very small part of who I am. And I was almost ashamed of it after that because of the whole experience. And it's only now that I'm kind of in my late 30s that I'm kind of coming to terms with I am a proud and out gay man. And that does come with its positives and negatives. When you run the kind of business that I run and work in the kind of industry that I do, it's a superpower sometimes to talk about your experiences of someone who's gone through oppression. However, it's also exhausting. So I did a post on LinkedIn last week because I was exhausted. I was being asked by a number of clients. One client in particular was pushing and pushing. Actually, they were a potential client, and we've decided not to work with them because of this. But they were pushing and pushing and pushing because kept on trying to ask me to justify my space in the D&I world. And actually, everybody's welcome in the D&I space, whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, black, white, South Asian, whatever. Everybody, if you're willing to do the right thing and be an ally for people, then everybody's welcome within the D&I space. And this company in particular were trying to get me to justify my space as what appeared to be a cisgendered, white, masculine male. And I get this quite a lot. And I kind of lost it a little bit and it was probably quite unprofessional at the time, but I was like, do you know how often I have to come out? Like, I have to come out every single day to every single new client that I talk to, every workshop that I do, every new networking experience I have to go through. I have to come out constantly and tell people why I'm in the D&I space. And it's exhausting. Obviously, it has its uses, its privileges, because we're able to adapt my life experience into the work that we do. But sometimes I'm doing this just because it's the right thing to do. And I'm passionate about what it is that I do. Regardless if I'm gay or not, that's a very small part of who I am. It should never impact why it is I'm actually in the space, or anybody's in the space for that matter.
Exactly. And I just think it's so incredible that you went through that really awful experience. And at that time, thinking about, how I'm going to have to hide myself and how is my career going to, and then here you are today, not your whole life, but your whole career now, you have your own business and you're helping to diversify the world. I mean, to take that experience you had and now go out there and change the world with it, it's just so commendable. I love this story.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've got to say, because Chris, you and I have spoken about this on a number of occasions, and that's one of the biggest finger pointing situations, because you said a moment ago about finger pointing, and I actually think from our past conversations, the finger has been pointed at you more than often than not because of how you look. Your appearance has given you more stigmatism of you being even in this space than, without you even being able to open your mouth, which in itself, even from the people that want to explore this area, they're already putting that on you before you've even started, which I find unbelievably hypocritical. They want to have somebody in this space that's going to provide them with insight and knowledge and guidance, and they're coming at it with the footprint first off of, well, are you even right for this? Because, well, look at you.
Do you even belong?
Yeah. That's one thing. I mean, when I decided to start the business, one thing I wanted to do was have a qualification to back me up. And I didn't need the qualification, because actually everything I did in the qualification I already knew. But I knew some of the questions I was going to get as a white, privileged, cisgendered male, that I was going to get questioned about my position in the space. And that's fine. Like, I'm well aware of my white privilege. I'm well aware of kind of what that's allowed me to do and things like that. But some in the D&I space, and when we talk about different aspects, everybody has a form of privilege and everybody has a position to be an ally as well. So it's like, I'm not going to say woe is me, because like there's so many people out there that have worse stories than I do and have gone through worse than what I have and kind of really kind of pushed to get to where they are today. But it was just a point I kind of got to over the last couple of weeks, where 2 years of doing what I've been doing and the constant questions every single day of having to kind of justify and come out constantly.
Can we touch on, we obviously have a lot of questions here I have loaded up for you, but I want to talk about the word ally, because we hear that, and I don't know if a lot of people out there might not know what that really means. Like, what does it mean to be an ally? And for me, and I can speak for myself, I'm very passionate about D&I, and my family, you probably don't know that because we just met on the show, but for me in Florida, I'm the only Caucasian person in my family in the state of Florida. All my family in New York, where I'm from, of course, I'm white, but down here, like Caribbean, West Indian, Asian, all my family. So, you know, people assume like if I'm in certain situations, like at a locker room or in past companies I've worked for, they feel comfortable saying certain things because they think that I'm just going to think it's cool.
Yeah.
And being an ally is when you're in a situation like that, don't laugh, don't join in, push back, challenge. Don't be, I don't get mad about it and like try to make them feel uncomfortable, but I sure as hell, I'm going to stick up and make sure that they know that I'm not cool with that. Yeah. And that to me, and maybe I'm wrong, to me, being an ally is just, those are the moments where you can be a voice. And those moments where people think they're safe and then they can say certain things, where you shake it up and you stick up for people and not just be part of the herd.
Definitely. I mean, I think that's hit the nail on the head. It's about being that amplified voice for people who don't have that amplified voice. And we talk about it so much when we look at C-suites or kind of directors of a company, predominantly white, male and stale, as kind of the description that's usually.
I haven't heard that. I love it.
But like, you have a position as that white male within a senior leadership role to be an ally to people and to educate yourself and to have conversations and to amplify those voices. And one thing we always talk about with employee resource groups is such a big thing within a lot of organizations now, where you have kind of LGBT groups or you have a general D&I group within your business. And one thing we often forget about is actually inviting those from the top into these resource groups, because sometimes D&I gets to a certain level. It gets to kind of middle management or kind of HR or HR director, and never goes right to the top. And a lot of the time at the top, there's an intent to learn and there's an intent to be part of the conversation. But sometimes you've got to massage those egos a little bit and invite people into the conversations. And actually, if you invite people into those conversations, they're the ones who need to learn and actually be empowered by what's been spoken about and what's affecting their staff. But also, they hold the purse strings for your business. So if you're not inviting them into those conversations to talk about, this is what we want to do, we want to march in pride, but we don't have any budget to kind of get involved in it, or we want to celebrate Black History Month, or we want to help with accessibility software within our organization. If you don't bring those people into those conversations, it's never going to get signed off. So I always encourage people to make sure that your senior leadership team are always part of your employee resource groups.
It's really important to be surrounded by people of different cultures and thoughts, and you know, a lot of the reason I am the person I am is because of where I grew up and who I surrounded myself with. Yeah. You know, I come from, originally, before I moved to New York City, I'm from a small town, and I was around mostly people that looked and acted and talked like me, right? And then I moved to New York City and I was thrusted into this insane pool of diversity. And I learned about different cultures and learned to love different people. And I think some people that may join the herd and think things are funny, I think when I have a lot more faith in humanity than I think a lot of people may. And I feel like if they just grow to know people and have a conversation with somebody, meet a few gay people, meet a few Black people, get outside of your comfort zone and like just learn about people, it's really not that hard. And I think a lot of that like discrimination or those thoughts will drift away, you know. Like I think it's having that conversation and not feeling like you're gonna be wrong, like, you know, like just being willing to know that it's okay to make a mistake and it's okay to have that conversation, right?
Just be a decent human being. I mean, one thing we talk about in our workshops, and we always, and it came from one of the very first in-person workshops we did out of COVID. I asked the audience, I was like, so what can we do to be better humans? What can we do to be better allies? And someone shouted out, "Don't be a dick." And I was like, you know, it's fair, but it's quite gendered. So can we think of something else that isn't as gendered? And she said, "Don't be a pussy." And I was like, well, can we think of something else? Because don't like the word personally, and again, it's quite gendered. And I said, what else? And this person shouted, "Don't be an arsehole or an asshole." And I was like, okay, we can use that. So we kind of went with that. But then I went home and I thought, I need to do my due diligence here and make sure that everybody has an asshole. 5,000 people don't. So we've now come up with "Don't be a shit." which everybody still shits. So if anyone ever says, what can we do to be a better person? Don't be a shit is kind of the anecdote that we're going with.
And there's an emoji for that.
Exactly. There's an emoji.
There is. So I'm going to load up some questions. I don't know, Thomas, do you want to kind of read them as I go through? Or
well, yeah, I mean, I was just going to say as well,
many.
I just want to, just before we do, there's been a few people that have commented. You know, Chris, first off, a lot of people showing support. You've actually seemed to have, somebody said it right away. Michael has said that, this is a really important conversation. And it definitely is. I don't think, I've said to you on a number of occasions, I believe, and I still believe this quite wholeheartedly, that businesses tick boxes with this area. I don't think that they truly take ownership. I don't believe that they truly take this with both hands. And this I see as actually an opportunity. I see this as an opportunity to empower people within your business. I see this as an opportunity to make your businesses more inclusive, more supportive, more encouraging. And the businesses that are doing everything they possibly can in this space, I commend them wholeheartedly. But I still believe there is a culture of tick boxes. Oh yeah, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. We put it in the drawer and leave it, and that's it. And we hope that nobody brings it up.
Is there a metrics? Yeah. Is there a metrics like what you're saying, Thomas, to the people or the companies that are practicing great D&I? Is there a metrics to show what their retention rate is versus the ones that aren't, and show that people just like to? If your people are happy, you're gonna have a more successful business. So here's the selling point for you, those who want to look at the bottom dollar in the ROI.
True. I think we need to find one somewhere. That's for sure. Yeah. And again, I thought that Chris made a very good point, is our voices on this platform are amplified. We almost have a responsibility from an ally perspective to speak up. And I think we were all in agreement last time, is that we have an opportunity on this platform to make these conversations known, to bring them to the table. And I actually think to shove them in front of people's faces who would rather not see them. So if anybody is watching right now and they're commenting, please share it, please like it, please raise awareness, because I truly believe in this. And I've been an ally of Chris's, I've been a friend of Chris's since we started speaking. And for me, he is truly a leader in this space. He is an innovator and he is a disruptor. So please help us raise that awareness. If you are on this, do what you can, because that's what we're doing right here. But no, get the questions up. We'll because I know we've got loads.
While you're teeing up the questions, Jeremy, I want to ask the audience a question. Type it in chat. Have you ever interviewed for a company and were asked D&I questions?
Ooh,
good one.
I want to know, have any of you, and there's a reason I'm asking this, because I never have. And I was Googling to prepare for questions for you. And I got an article about questions, how to respond when you're asked as an applicant. And I'm like, wow, I have never been asked a D&I question as an applicant. And I'm wondering, have any of you ever been asked a question as an applicant? So love to see that.
And I was going to say, and to flip on that, if you've been a candidate and you've asked a D&I question to an employer to see what they say, I would love to hear what your questions were as well. Because I think that is really interesting. To challenge an employer in an interview, one, takes a lot of balls. No, that's very gender. That's very gender focused. It takes a lot of guts. Everyone's got guts.
There we go.
There you go. I'm learning. But to challenge an interviewer in itself, it takes a lot of guts. But to ask those sorts of questions, I think is very forward thinking as well. So if anyone's got that scenario as well, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, because if you're looking to have the right team, it's always about the right people. Then why aren't we asking those questions? And I love that. I see Adele said yes, but Don says no. Do you believe in teachings of the church? Okay, I'll leave that to you.
I mean, you were asked that, Adele? Adele, you were asked that in the interview?
You were asked that one.
Oh, wow. You were asked that?
It sounds like it.
Wow.
Whoa.
She said yes. Do you believe in the teachings of the church?
Okay.
Yeah, that was a question for her. So again, in my opinion, I don't know about you guys, but I would find that massively inappropriate.
I would be like completely put off guard. And I am a practicing Christian. I still wouldn't have liked that question. I would have felt
No.
like I was like
Right.
put
Yeah,
on
that
spot
was-
and like, how do I answer that? And what if I do? And what if I don't? Like, that's, I don't want to know.
It's
Wow.
such an interesting topic when we talk about the questions within recruitment. So we work with a number of universities, and one of the things we were doing with them was actually asking students, what are the most common questions you're asking when you're going to interview for a job? And the most common is someone going to look like me? What's your D&I strategy? What are your stats? So people are asking for receipts. So students want to see receipts. Candidates want to see receipts of, we don't want to just see a statement on your website. We want to actually know, what are you doing in your business? What is the population of your business? So it'll be interesting to see some of the answers that come through.
Yeah,
wow.
well, the last few years that I was actually looking at different opportunities that came my way, the first thing I did is go to their website and look at their portfolio of their leadership team. And when I saw just one color and one sex, I immediately made maybe that's wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I immediately made a judgment of my want to join that company.
Yeah. What is it? There was something done a couple of years ago. I think it was during lockdown, where they got every name of kind of the biggest corporations in America, and I think there was more people called Steve as a CEO than what there was women as a CEO. So it's crazy.
Wow.
Absolutely. They've done
I'm
it.
going to bring up. Wow.
I have heard that.
Look at this.
There's a good one.
Amanda. Yes, I'm in a very small town in Oklahoma with like 3,000 people, and everyone knows everyone. So it's less questions about, are you gay, as they already know that I have a life partner. They have tended to ask weird questions that only come from a small town, like, when did you find out you were gay, or how long was it? How was it like coming out to your family? Do you go to church? And an interview?
Yeah, that's what I could see someone asking, to try to learn more.
I am very.
If that was an interview question, I don't know about that.
I am so fortunate to have been trained the way I was trained.
Right.
And, like, I was literally trained. I started with H&M, which is a Swedish company, so they're pretty progressive. Yeah. And we were told, like the first day of training of recruiting was, when you're writing your notes, never have an opinion. Never assume someone's angry. Never assume someone's upset. Never assume someone's happy in the way when you're making their notes, right? You always act like you're a camera, and you literally write down verbatim quote what they said. So you're not making an assumption on their emotion. And then you write down what they did. Like, if you feel like they're angry in an interview, write down that they're clenching their fists and their face is turning red, or they're grinding their teeth. You don't say someone is angry, right? And I carried that with me my whole career on, like, just write down what you hear and what you see and what they do, what they tell you, right? I feel like that's like one of the easiest tips for recruiting. But that was actually my question I was going to bring up to you, Chris.
Yeah, that's great. And I have to jump in because I just read Paula's.
Okay, hold on.
I really want to touch on that. Yeah.
Okay,
years ago, they asked me, "Are you planning to be a mother?" I was 30 something, and I have no children. I hate that question. That's something. That's something.
Yeah, we all know
exactly thinking. Why they're asking, don't you?
Oh yeah,
we all know exactly.
Yeah. Is she going to stay and work here, or is she going to take off for 9 months? Yeah, exactly.
Right,
yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Is she going to have to leave because they're at school and they got sick?
Yeah. It's crazy in this day and age that question's still being asked, especially as medical practices evolve and actually people become mothers later on in life and things like that as well. It's the mind blows.
Well, if I could jump in really quick, since we are on that topic, before we get too far away from it, as far as, were you ever asked a D&I question as an interviewee, as an applicant, as the leaders that are watching this right now, you may not have ever thought to ask a D&I question, and that's okay. But we're all evolving. So that would be a goal right here, right off the top, is write down, what D&I questions can I ask? Maybe not be too weighted on it, but just give us one, Chris. What would you recommend as one or two questions you should ask?
I don't think it's necessarily actually about asking the questions. I think it's about having the knowledge of your business and actually, like I said, knowing who's in your organization. And I think a D&I survey is one of the easiest things any business can do. It can be anonymous as well. It should be anonymous as well, to kind of really get to grips with the data that exists within your business. Who's there? Who's part of the LGBT plus population? Who's comfortable with working there? Who identifies as what? But also kind of, I would, again, I wouldn't ask it as a question. I would just come out with the statement as that, like, as an organization, we're very inclusive. We know what we look like to the outside world, because predominantly a lot of senior leadership teams are white. But this is what we're doing in order to actually be more diverse and actually have more of an inclusive culture. I wouldn't necessarily ask a question. I would just have the information to deliver as part of the recruitment process.
Yeah, I love that. But also, I just feel like after reading that article, that it really enlightened me. Because again, it's not something I ever thought about. And I had never been asked a question. You know how you have those canned answers in interviews?
Yeah.
I think if you're really searching out the right person, seeing what their response is to a question like, maybe what does diversity and equality mean to you?
Yeah.
And just seeing what they say. I think those are, would you agree? Would that be, or is that getting too out there?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I would definitely hit them with the inclusion question. What does inclusion mean to you?
Okay.
Or what does an inclusive workplace look like to you?
Oh, okay.
So that way you're really getting to understand the mentality of kind of either where they previously worked and it's not been a very inclusive place, or they're just not an inclusive person themselves,
Right.
and actually how that will then transpire into the actual being hired into your business.
Right. And just even thinking about what Jeremy had said about his situation in the locker room, what would you do? Like a good, give me an example of a time where something's happened and how did you respond? And I don't even know what to call it when someone was inappropriate and not being inclusive. And how did you respond? Maybe just getting a real life example. I'm honestly just thinking about this right now because I have never thought about it before.
I mean, this is what I do day to day. I mean, Pride's probably the best example I could probably think of. Every single June, every single major corporation in the world changes their logo to the Pride flag. And it happened this year, and BMW did it. But what they didn't do was for United Arab Emirates, for instance, they didn't change the logo for BMW there. Now, what you're doing there is almost putting your staff at risk, because if you're going to send a member of your team from the States, from the UK, into the UAE, they will have to hide who they are if they are part of the LGBT plus community, for instance. And actually, you're not supporting the LGBT plus population that exists within the UAE, because it does exist. It's illegal, but it does exist. They are there. So I took to LinkedIn and I started calling it out. I started calling out some businesses who were only changing the flags for certain parts of the world. And actually, we got really commended for it by our peers and other allies, but these organizations never ever responded and sometimes deleted the comments because they didn't want to be seen as non-inclusive for everybody. So yeah, that's probably the most recent one I can think of as being an ally, is calling it out. And even just being part of Pride Parade or a BLM march or some sort of kind of protest, peaceful protest, is just a way of almost putting up the middle finger to those who are trying to kind of mute those voices and actually put people down, is the best way to do it.
So I want to bring up a topic, which at its surface is not even that, it's not that difficult to me personally, but it's such a heated conversation. In fact, I don't know about the UK, but over here in the United States, it is. In fact, we have a politician who said, for instance, quote, "Hi, my name is," I'll leave his name out, "and my pronoun is kiss my ass." That's what he said on stage in front of, in a conference of that,
I bet I could guess who that
of that particular party. So, you know, whatever. But my point is, the whole pronoun conversation is like, it's such a touchy subject, but to me, it's like, it doesn't take any effort to ask. Like, if is needed. And I actually never had it happen to me until just recently. Like just recently it happened where somebody that I know personally is now identifying as they, them. And I didn't know that. And I was put on the spot and I was like, oh, shoot, because I'm so used to calling her a girl. And she told me, and it wasn't that hard. Like she just said, oh no, my preferred pronoun is they, them. I said, oh, okay. So I kind of sat there and I had to let it marinate. I'm like, okay, I haven't had to do this yet, but okay. All right. So it just took the effort to say it. It didn't hurt to do it. If that's what it takes to make that person happy, it wasn't that difficult, but it seems to be such an issue. But I wanted to bring up a actual fact. LinkedIn found that 70% of all job seekers think that recruiters and hiring managers alike should prioritize confirming preferred gender pronouns. An overwhelming 72% of hiring managers agree. Okay, so that's a majority number, much more than I actually thought. I thought it would be kind of 50-50, but that's an impressive stat. So, which leads me to my long-winded question, Chris. Boom. Why do we use pronouns, and what can you kind of go into this a little bit and make it not such a taboo topic?
Yeah, I mean, so gender isn't what was always taught when we were younger. We were always taught male, female, but this whole middle section, this whole binary of gender that kind of sits there, and some people don't identify as any. Some people identify as non-binary. Some people identify as multiple pronouns and multiple genders. And we'll kind of get into that, I suppose, as we go, just to blow people's minds a little bit.
Yeah.
And the reason why using pronouns is important is because that's personal to that person. That's how they identify. So what gives anybody the right to question how someone identifies? An example, so I'd ran a workshop a few weeks ago, and there was an older gay gentleman who was in the workshop, and he was like, look, I just don't get it. It was like, I don't understand why the company's pushing us to put our pronouns on our email signatures. I was like, first and foremost, it should never be compulsory. It should be completely up to the individual if they want to disclose what the pronouns are on their email signature. No organization should ever make it mandatory, because there's a number of reasons why you shouldn't make it mandatory. First of all, what I said to this gentleman was, don't think about it as a you problem. Think about it as a you solution. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, by you having your pronouns on your email signature may open up a safe space and dialogue for someone who is at the start of the transition journey, is, I love that, or is non-binary, or perhaps it's given them a space at some point that perhaps they don't know what their identity is, but at some point when they do realize that, they've seen that on your email signature, and they could actually go to you and say, hey, actually, just to let you know, I'm now identifying as they, them, he, him, or she, her. So it's never a you thing, it's a you solution. I suppose that's the best way to kind of describe it.
And if I can jump in, I felt that too. I'm like, well, why should I? I'm clearly a she, her. I'm very she, her, and so why would I, identify that? And someone really enlightened me. It just shows that you're an ally and that you understand, and that someone doesn't have to be afraid to share their pronouns with you. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's a great identifier. That's a way for me to serve others. And when you think about it like that, and I think that most people who just don't understand things tend to be like, when they don't get it, they're like, well, that's stupid. Yeah. Because they don't understand. So when you hear people say that, if you have associates where you hear people say that, it's because they don't understand and they don't know anybody like that. Or have been in that experience. So that's a place to open up your heart and lead from the heart, instead of be defensive about that. When someone says that's stupid, say, may I share some information with you, and just try to educate.
I think a lot of it is, I mean, I'll admit it. I just don't want to be wrong. Like, a lot of people are just scared. Like, I don't want to like look like an idiot. I'm speaking for myself. I'll try, and I respect it. But I also don't want to offend, and I don't want to make a misstep. And like, that's like one question that Christine brought. Like, what do you do if you make a misstep? Like, I was fortunate that it wasn't an issue when it happened to me, and I just corrected it. But
Yeah.
what would you?
And I'll give you a
recommend?
real good example of one misstep that I made. I was at dinner, and the server, had a girl name and had a girl, appeared to be a girl, and it was before I was more enlightened, if you will. And she turned away, and I didn't remember her name. I was like, "Oh, Miss," and then everybody at the table was like, "Oh," because and I don't really pay attention to a lot of that. You're just a person, and I'm used to saying Miss.
Yeah.
So I went, and I just felt so badly. But so I know in our workplace, it's hard to learn and not think things are stupid if we're afraid to ask. So how do we get a culture where you don't feel like you're going to be canceled if you do make a mistake? So go.
I think there's a number of things to unpack there, I suppose. Not everybody's going to present as the gender they identify as. So, I mean, do any of you watch Queer Eye, for instance?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. So Jonathan Van Ness, for instance, is probably a prime example. Jonathan identifies as multiple genders. So Jonathan identifies as he, she, and they. So one day, maybe feeling more masculine, would identify as he. Another day, would perhaps be more kind of central on the binary scale and would identify as they. And another day, they would identify as she. So they made up of multiple pronouns.
Wow.
And I'm going to be honest, when I saw that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gender's so fluid. And I think misogyny, not misogyny, just gender, look back to the 80s, for instance, where there was punk rockers and all the kind of cock rockers and all this kind of stuff who were wearing makeup and kind of wearing dresses and skirts and all that kind of stuff. And
The LA Strip poison, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
And no one batted an eyelid. And then the 90s came in and kind of everything got a little bit muddled and kind of a bit weird, and so did the early 2000s. Now we've kind of gone back to that way where actually people are like, this is how I identify, this is how I want to look, this is what I want to wear. Pronouns in an organization, it's really important that the message gets out there. I think it has to come from the top. I think your C-suite senior leadership team should never come from HR. D&I is always seen as an HR issue or an HR problem. It's not, it's an everyone issue.
I love it.
And it should come from the top. There should be a message to say, look, we want to promote people disclosing their pronouns as part of their email signature, part of their name badges, whatever it is that you do within your organization. However, it's not compulsory, but we want to encourage it so that people can feel comfortable in using the pronouns that they want to use. And that's all you really have to say as part of your messaging.
One thing that I think you said earlier that is more impactful than maybe, I don't even know, maybe you do realize it, is you said it should not be mandatory.
Yeah.
And when you said that resonated with me, because I know there are millions of people out there feeling they're forced to do this. Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to deal with this. I live in Idaho, and I mean, come on, seriously. Like, I don't want to do this. You don't have to, but it's just like the fact that you said it's not mandatory, I feel kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And it's not only for that reason, it's also cultural reasons. So for instance, in the Hungary, the country, they only have one pronoun. So if you came to the US or the UK or wherever from Hungary and people are talking about multiple pronouns, you're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? Because you've come from a place that actually everybody only uses one.
What is it?
I can't actually remember off the top of my head what it is, but I will find out.
Okay.
But it's really important to remember that actually it could be for a religious reason, cultural reason, whatever.
Right.
But all I would say to that is if you don't want to do it, just respect those who do and those who are disclosing their pronouns. It's all
right.
about-
I was going to say, because what if you're a person who hasn't actually come out yet or doesn't feel comfortable sharing your differences or changes or whatnot? You're not there yet. So maybe you don't want to. And I guess if you were forced to, you could just put whatever people would think. But I do agree that it shouldn't be anything.
And I would still push back. Even if a company's trying to force you, I would still push back because it's not a legal requirement. It doesn't come under any kind of policy or anything like that within an organization. Right. Yes, there's intent there by the organization to say, yeah, have your pronouns on there, but you should never be forced to do it. So, yeah.
I have a question that I don't think I prepped you on. So,
okay.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't.
anything.
But I'm wondering this because it's actually a topic, Thomas and Christine, that we have been kicking the ball down the road, for a long time. So, without further ado, right, boom. Do you consider ageism discrimination, and is age a part of D&I?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I think in the UK, so I can only obviously talk on kind of behalf of what happens in the UK, but there's something like 60% of people over the age of 50 in the UK don't feel valued within their workplace. And that's because this new generations coming through, which obviously have been brought up with technology and things like that. And companies invest in that, but they don't actually realize that the people who have worked with them for 10, 20, 30 years have so much knowledge about your business. Invest in the training of the people who know your business in and out. And actually they'll be able to pass on that wisdom to the other generations that are coming through within your organization. In the UK as well, age is a protected characteristic. So if you're ever discriminated against because of your age, then actually you could take your employer to tribunal, or it could be escalated and things like that. So,
okay.
And I have another one. As I was helping a company with their D&I program to get it started and launched and whatnot, one of the questions I asked in our launch PowerPoint was, what do you think falls under D&I, diversity and inclusion? And then one of the things we brought up that I never thought about was education. Sometimes people feel unincluded because if they don't have a college degree, they don't have a master's, or they don't have a certain education level. and that's something I never put into that bucket.
So I went for a promotion once at the university that I worked for, and because I didn't have a degree, I couldn't actually go for the promotion, which was ridiculous because I was doing the same job as I was doing anyway, but it was just a much elevated level. But because of the way universities are built, you have to be seen as an academic level in order to get to that position.
Right.
But it's crazy. There are a lot of amazing programs, especially in the UK, that support people who perhaps have gone through non-traditional routes into higher education. So social mobility is such a big thing in the UK. So people from low socioeconomic groups, people from single-parent households, low family incomes, and things like that. We've got organizations like PwC have fantastic entry requirements, and they've changed their entry requirements to support people into their organization. So those who have come from non-traditional routes or things like that, there's a lot of programs being put in place now to help support that. But unfortunately, it's not seen as a protected characteristic as of yet, because it's too hard to identify as to kind of who falls under that bracket, because there's so many different variations of what social mobility looks like in this country.
And when you say social mobility, define that.
So social mobility is kind of an all-encompassing term of people from low socioeconomic groups, or people who grew up in a low family income household, or had a single parent household, and kind of struggled to get into either education or whatever, needed additional support. That's kind of what would
I never heard that term before. Social mobility.
The only reason I know it is because of Chris. So yeah.
I just thought you were nodding along, going, "Yeah, I definitely know this."
No, I take it in. See.
Can we ask the capital question?
Oh, yes. I had it teed up, so it's right here.
Awesome.
There you go. It's for you.
Without spending a lot of capital, how can we, as a hotel leaders, make our associate areas more inclusive? You know, we can't maybe make a non-gender bathroom or whatnot because that's a lot of capital. But any thoughts that you've seen that you can share?
That's a very good question. From an accessibility point of view, it's making sure that you've got kind of every avenue covered. Are your areas kind of accessible for wheelchair users? Do you have audio loops for those hard of hearing? And just additional support for anybody coming in. And any guest that's coming into a hotel or anything like that, is having that feature on the website when you are booking a room. Is there any additional requirements that you need and any further requirements that you need, which I know a lot of hotels do cover, that we can support you with? It's actually asking our clients what it is that they need. but also asking the people within our organization what they need as well. So you could be front of house on reception, and perhaps you need some accessibility software because you're partially sighted, for instance, and you need a screen reader or something like that. Now, these aren't massive expenses for businesses, but you will have to pay some money in order to kind of adopt that type of thing. So
anything in the gender area of what, without having to restructure locker rooms and whatnot. Any thoughts on that?
Without restructuring,
uniform. I remember it was 2005 and I was still forced to wear a skirt because I was female.
I think uniform should be kind of neutral for everybody, or give people the option. Have a male uniform and a female uniform, and then perhaps have a neutral uniform as well. It's not going to cost you any much more as a business, or if anything at all. Right. But yeah, just having those kind of conversations. And again, this is where surveys are really important with the teams that you have within your organization. Ask them what it is that they need and what they want from you as an organization. Because what's going to happen is Gen Z start to get older and come into your organizations. They're going to call this stuff out when they join your business. And actually, you promised us all this, but it doesn't exist. Or you've said you're an inclusive organization and have arrived here, and actually you don't have gender neutral toilets, or you don't have gender neutral uniforms and things like that. Right. And when we talk about infrastructure, I think we get so hung up sometimes with gender neutral toilets, and they're really important. And actually, sometimes it doesn't cost too much just to transform one of the areas into a gender neutral toilet. Right. What I would always say is never direct someone who is trans, or anybody who wants to use a gender neutral toilet, to the disabled toilets. Just completely wrong. We've seen it happen with some organizations who have said, if you don't want to use men, you don't want to use female, go to the disabled toilet.
What is a gender neutral toilet? Are you referring to the bathroom? Are you referring to the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you call the bathroom the toilet?
The toilet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm thinking of lavatory.
No, Jeremy.
Lavatory. Like there's a urinal and there's a toilet. Okay.
Why would that be bad? Because it is a gender neutral. At least it's a space where they can go to not feel.
Exactly. If you're non-binary, you're having to make a choice whether I go to the male or female toilet. Like, have the option for someone to have a neutral toilet if they want to go to the neutral toilet.
Right. I'm just saying, why would that be bad to send them to the accessible toilet? Only because it is a.
Because what you're generally saying is actually. We see you as someone who has a disability.
I know, but at least it is what they're looking for, right?
Yes, but both male and female toilets have pretty much everything that you have in a disabled toilet as well, except
you just pick one of them.
Well, no, that's not the point. So if you're non-binary, you don't identify as male or female, so you should never be made to choose one or the other. Like,
so where are you going to be?
So this is why there's such a big thing to push for gender-neutral bathrooms.
I see. Okay, yes. And this is what I'll say. We Gen Xers and older millennials, advanced millennials or mature millennials, we this is all new to me and whatnot. And at first it's like, what? It's like, okay, I'm trying to learn and all of that. But I have quite a few friends that are junior high teachers.
Yeah.
And she says the majority of our class, they have different pronouns, they change, so this is coming. So everybody, we need to understand it and
this is where training is so important. And that's the biggest thing is invest in training for your business. Get speakers to come in, do things like this conversation that we're having right now. But what I would always say is if you are going to have a trainer come in, you are going to have someone to come in and talk, pay them for their time. Because what you're asking them to do is talk about their own lived experience, but also train you on how to be a more inclusive employer. So there's no reason why no one should ever turn up to a gig and not be paid for it, because it's like going into a shop and taking a Mars bar, for instance, and just walking out the shop.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would say as well is the one thing we know, this is inevitable.
Yeah,
the future is inevitable in this space.
Yes,
these questions are coming. If you are not prepared, you need to get prepared, because either way,
prepare is preparing to fail.
Exactly that. As you've just said, universities, colleges, schools, they are already integrated into this. They are already there. If they ask you, if they take that empowerment moment and ask you as an employer, what do you do in your environment to make it inclusive, to make it diverse? and you don't have a solid answer behind it, and I'm not talking about a box ticking answer, I'm talking about a solid ownership answer, you will lose that employee to somebody else that is better prepared.
And also,
Simple
why
as
would
that.
you have diversity and inclusion instilled in your business? If you have inclusion at the heart of everything that you do, it's been proven to increase your revenue by up to 46%. So why wouldn't you want to do that as a business? Why wouldn't you want to make sure that people come into your business, feel safe, feel included, give the best of themselves to you because they feel valued, therefore benefits you as a business because your revenue is going to increase, but also benefits the culture that you have within your organization and actually the inclusion that you have within your business because people feel seen, safe, and valued to thrive and come up with good ideas.
Chris?
Yes.
If I asked you, I'm trying to think of this off the top of my head. If I asked you for 3 things that would be the main, I suppose, characteristics of an ally, what would you say those would be in this day and age? So if somebody wanted to be an ally, this is brand new for them. They're listening to this podcast and they're thinking, I want to be involved in this, or I want to do what I can. What would the 3 main things be? What would you say are the absolute top things that somebody could start doing now, today, tomorrow?
Don't rely on the oppressions of others. If you want to be an ally, go and educate yourself. There are tens of thousands of fantastic books out there that exist on diversity and inclusion. Become educated. We as a business, we have a huge amount of free resources as well. So if you want to hit us up, go on our website and you can download loads and loads of free resources from us. Get involved with different groups outside your own peer groups, friendship groups. Diversify who it is that you hang around with and learn about people's experiences, but don't make them the source of information. Just be open. Like be open and be transparent. Like if you're having conversations with people, and as a business as well, this is the one thing that we get asked a lot. So our very first client said, look, we're a bunch of white guys. Like we want to do the right thing, but we don't know how to do it because we know how we're perceived on the outside. And I was like, own that. Like if you're a bunch of white guys, but you want to make a difference, own the fact that that's who you are and actually explain to people why it is that diversity and inclusion is so important to you as an organization. So often we hide behind stock imagery or we hide behind false statements or whatever. But actually, it's just about owning who we are right now and actually the journey we want to go on, create an inclusive workplace that people feel safe and valued and they have a sense of belonging. You do that, you're automatically going to hire diversity into your business who's going to stay. It's all about just being transparent and just own your shit. That's probably the best thing I could probably say.
Love it. Love that.
Love it.
So the only thing I'd add
up
to
his
those
website.
ally points. Oh yeah, go on. No, go on.
What was that? Sorry.
What was the thing, Christine?
Oh, I said put up Chris's website so they can
yes.
tap into those resources.
For sure, for sure.
We'll put them in the comment section.
Okay.
The only thing I was going to add to the ally points is, as I said previously, share this conversation.
Yeah.
We want to use this platform to make some real change, some positive change. And the way to be an ally to this platform and to us being able to push these agenda points is by sharing, liking, commenting. So if you think somebody else would love to see this conversation, send it to them. If you think somebody else would love to hear the comments that we've been making or love to connect with Chris, send it to people because that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's what I wanted to end with.
What I'd also say is, I think it's amazing what you've done in this episode to kind of really amplify, but also look at what we look like right now. We're 4 white people talking about diversity and inclusion. So what I would perhaps challenge you with is try and diversify actually who it is that you have coming on. If you want to talk about D&I, get different voices and people's different experiences to talk about it as well. Obviously, I'm really grateful to be here, but it's just important because you will get people that may call you out based on.
Oh yeah, I mean, we knew intentionally when we actually first started the hiring lens, Thomas and I, and it's not like it was nothing intentional. We were just 3 guys who met up during COVID, never met in person. We're across, he's there across the pond. We met, we were doing clubhouse sessions, and we just hit it off, and just coincidentally, we're 3 white guys, me, Aidan, and Thomas, and we're like, hey, let's bring it to live. And then I'm sitting there, and go, oh shit. You know, like, look at
It was
us.
true. He and I, right?
And we
got on a
both
call.
said it at the same time. I go,
Yeah.
oh my God. And like, again,
Yeah.
like my family upbringing, like what my family, I'm surrounded by diversity here, but nobody knows that. They just see me. But if you go out and see my family, you'll be, oh, okay. But they don't see that. I'm like, on those paper, that's what it looks like. I'm like, shit. Like, and then I knew Christine. We've been like in the mix. I go, I really want, and plus her energy. She's like, come on. She's like she's like 3 cups of coffee and an espresso. So I was like, we really, and Christine, was I around the bush? I literally told her.
Yeah.
I said, we need some. Can you get on here? We need some kind of diversity. But I agree with everything you said, Chris. Like, you know, people eat with their eyes, and even though in our hearts we know as a team at the Hiring Lens, it doesn't. People still will challenge it, and you know, I get it.
Yeah. Thank you.
But no, should we? It's just over an hour now, guys.
I know. I could go for 4 more hours talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know,
we're
pushing. Chris, can you take? I'm gonna put the screen on you. Please pitch. I don't care how long you go. Just pitch, and then we're gonna take the comment. Any of your links, I'll put them in the comment section. This is gonna be on YouTube Live. It's on Facebook Live, and it's on LinkedIn Live. So I'm gonna just throw the mic on you, and please just go to town.
Cool. So I am the owner and founder of Your D&I. So we're a diversity and inclusion consultancy and workshop facilitators. We come at diversity and inclusion from a different angle. We don't talk corporate BS. We want to speak to people like they want to be spoken to, and help educate people, and not point the finger. It's all about education in our eyes. We have workshops from inclusive language. So our most popular workshop's called It's Just Banter, and it's all about kind of inclusive language and banter in the workplace when banter can go too far. We also have the A to T of LGBT+, which is our LGBT+ inclusion workshop. We have How to Be an Effective Ally, which is our allyship workshop. And unconscious bias as well. Most D&I practitioners probably do unconscious bias workshops. What sets us aside, like I said, is we're very colourful, we're very vibrant, we're very kind of here to call you out, but also here to support you in your D&I journey from start to finish. Our consultancy consists of diversity and inclusion audits. So we'll take a real deep dive into your business and help support you to become a more inclusive and diverse workforce, but also work alongside you as part of our consultancy as well, where if you have any questions or any kind of projects regarding or relating to D&I, we're there to support you as well. And our biggest thing that we wanted to do as a business when we first launched was make sure that we have free resources. We have a huge amount of free resources available to people to download from lots and lots of different topics, myth busting LGBT+, talking about anxiety, mental health, equality, equity within the workplace, and lots and lots. And we also have our own podcast as well called Diversity, which Tom has been on, where we spill the tea every week on different D&I topics. So that's us.
Awesome!
If I had my air horn right now.
I love the diversity. I love it.
We've just launched season 4 of the podcast, so we're super excited about it.
Oh,
I'm waiting for my invite back, guys. I'm sure it's lost in the emails. Or
I'm waiting on my home challenge as well, Tom. So, you know.
I love it. I'm going to listen. Also, before we go, you know, I really like this. Amanda just threw something up. I just want to bring this up. It might be nice to have different episodes with different types of people who are succeeding from diverse backgrounds to show up and show up and comers that it is possible. So that's the part that I like, Amanda. That's a good idea. And we will definitely talk about that. That's great. Because people want to see, okay, great, you guys are talking, but show me the proofs in the pudding.
Right. Some of them looks like me, he's president.
Show me.
Exactly, absolutely. I think that's an amazing comment.
Yeah, love it.
Well, with
that,
let's wrap up. Well, I want to wrap up. And by all the interest that we have in the thread, I can tell this is something that people really want to hear. I mean, like, definitely we wanted to hear it, but that's a lot of action going on. I didn't even normally I throw all the there's a lot of comments going on over there. I mean, so that's good. Hey, well, I'll tee it off. Hey, thank you for joining. I'm Jeremy Nichols. You can find me on YouTube. It's my name, Jeremy Nichols. Same face, just just search it on YouTube. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. I work for Gecko Hospitality in the state of Florida. And we do this every final Friday, and it's been 2 years now. So thank you for joining us. Thomas?
I'll go with Christine. Go, Christine.
Oh, Christine. Wait.
I'll end and
Christine.
say goodbye to Chris. Go on.
Hello, y'all. It's Christine Trippi, and you can go to thewisepineapple.com and you'll see all that you need to see. But I do want you to know I'm revolutionizing hospitality with my Crown Society Insiders Hospitality Club, and the doors open today. So if you are looking for the support, strategies to reach your goals, and the motivation, come and see me. Doors open today.
Awesome. I also want to say, just before I do close off, thank you to Christine. The Sweet 60 conference looked absolutely awesome, and to be part of that was a massive privilege. So big thank you to you, and congratulations, because honestly, it looked like a massive hit.
It's so beautiful. I love it so much. And it was so much work, and I'm just so happy it ended so beautifully.
Good. No, good. I'm so pleased to be a part of it, and with my good friend Jeremy as well.
Yeah, and now I wish Chris was part of it. So next one, Chris.
Next time.
Guys, well, yeah, my name's Thomas Finn. I'm the managing director of Edwards & Finn, which is a specialist revenue management and wider commercial recruitment firm here in the UK, but we do operate in the wider international space as well. I'm also the host of the YouTube channel ENF TV, and that's me. You can find that on YouTube, Edwards & Finn, ENF TV, and you'll see me on LinkedIn, Thomas Finn. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in this one. As Jeremy said, we've had an amazing amount of engagement with this episode, and it's clearly struck a chord with a lot of people. We're massively passionate about this subject. We want to learn more. Well, that's why we're doing it. And I just want to say a huge thank you to my good friend, Chris. Chris, you're awesome, mate. You're a beautiful human being. You're amazing. You're doing some fantastic things over here, and I'm so happy to have been able to get you onto this platform. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're going to make me blush, Tom. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I just think this conversation is obviously a great start and just really important to have. So yeah, thank you for having me.
All right,
and guys, thank you so much. I'm out.
Have a wonderful weekend. See you guys later. All right.